So artificial intelligence, just to show you, this is kind of an ecosystem of stuff out there, and all these different things, video recognition, gesture control. I think somebody's going to talk about virtual reality. At some point, that's going to play in. I don't know if anybody's seen this, but if you go to LinkedIn, you can always try to look me up. I've got a posting of one where I believe it's Microsoft has come up with a virtual reality, or no, it's Google, and they did this thing. I don't know if you've seen it, where you can actually artistically you can paint with fire in virtual reality. Has anybody seen this? Go look at it because it's cool. It's not just cool, but imagine a time, and there's probably not too distant a future, where a lot of art won't even be done in physical media. It will be done in things like this, with stuff that is having a mixture of fire and ice visually. You know, that'd just be cool, but think about the implications if you can do virtual reality. You can look in the middle of a CT scan. You can look in the middle of any kind of visualization. You want to walk through a plane that's never been built except in a virtual space. You can walk through it during a simulation. That's something to be thoughtful of. So these are just a small number of companies got into it. I can tell you this, I'm willing to bet you any amount of money that the next 10 billionaires, 7 of them come because of artificial intelligence over the next decade. Now in healthcare, if you start thinking about all the wearables, all the health-related data, and they've got to figure that out because nobody wants to get into FDA compliance stuff because that opens up all kinds of issues. But if you look at the stuff with Apple's first entry, you know, they shut off a lot of sensors. One, because some of them didn't work as well. I mean, sometimes hair messes with the sensors. You don't get an appropriate read. People can start misdiagnosing themselves and getting a bad heart rate or something like that. But at the end of the day, this will all work itself out in 2 or 3 generations of products. Then think about all that data ported on a real-time basis around everybody. Now, not only is that scary, but at the same time, you've got so much data that humans cannot sift through it. AI will. And if you haven't experienced, has anybody experienced an interaction with an AI, like the scheduling tool that's out there, the artificial assistant? Okay, go look this up. I had never experienced this until I had one of the best experiences scheduling a meeting with somebody who, and it was amazing how, you know, they didn't come at me too fast or too slow. They helped schedule a meeting, gave me all kinds, you know, you can go back and forth several times, and it was a virtual assistant. And then I showed my assistant that just to tick her off. Internet of Things, this, again, you have all these devices and connectivity, and if you don't believe me, look at companies like Samsung, and look at their refrigerators, look at their washers, dryers. Anybody who's technically sophisticated now is linking everything. Now, the scary part of that is, even with cars, and DARPA was kind enough to show on national TV that you can hack into a car, which is why I'm not getting any kind of new car with any computer on it. I'm going to a 57 Chevy, because nothing can hack that. And I can't work on it, so I'll be walking a lot more. But the reality is we'll have this. Secure, there's always a downside to new tech, but there's always an upside too, so it'll be balanced out. But imagine a reality where you want to work on something interesting, take all the data, all the metadata out there, and you look at when somebody's about to have a stroke. Anybody know anybody who's had a stroke? Well, then you know that there's a window for the people that you can help. It's a very short window, and if you don't help them, it deteriorates. Yeah, I'm not giving you 5 minutes. So the reason why we got into virtual care in a big way was to make sure we get proper telestroke coverage as fast as possible. But what if you could predict a stroke or a heart attack before it's going to happen? Imagine a day when you get into a place where you get a call and it says, Mr. Young, I want you to sit down right now. In fact, we want you to take a baby aspirin. You have a baby aspirin? Take a half an aspirin if you don't. Just sit there. This is going to be a hard day for you. Based on all the data we're seeing, and it could be wrong, but there's a 99% probability you're going to have a heart attack event, either tachycardia or something else. We're seeing very unusual rhythms. We want you to come into the hospital and get a workup. We want to be there for you, so before you have an event. Now, as a customer, I'm not going to care if I don't have a heart attack. I'm going to say, hooray. But if I do, I want to be in a hospital and waiting for it to happen, or I want to be the intervention to happen. Now, I think on stroke, if we could do that as well. There are a lot of people who believe we can start doing those kind of interventions. Now you start thinking about the hard tech and the soft tech and all the software that goes along with that. That's meaningful. I mean, it's also cool. So you've seen some 3D printing. I think these are cool, just for a lot of reasons. Now, the one terrible impact of war is that prosthetics get better. They do. They've gotten a lot better, but now they've gotten a lot cheaper too. You can actually build your own prosthetics. Now think about this young man who's got to go through life getting constantly adjusted with his growth spurts. Well, that kid could print his own hand and his own adjustments. And maybe his stub only hits a certain, is expanded a half an inch. What if he didn't have to go through all the scheduling and everything like that? He just says, it's kind of like this. I'm going to print it out. That's reality now. So when you start thinking about medical devices and everything else, when I start talking about come together as a community, and I know you're doing some 3D printing and things like that, you want to do something really smart? Go to either Cambridge, look at Cambridge Innovation Partners, or go to St. Louis, look at Cortex, look at their tech shop. Create a tech shop, someplace where engineers can come together. And for federal and state government, if you don't do this, you're doing something terrible for your state, pointing at you. Because what this does, and put it near a bunch of engineers and give them access, make them pay a little bit for it, but give them access to the tools so that they can just dream and come up with stuff. You will have more innovation and jobs stay right here if you just do this. But I would recommend you send a group of people and go look at these. You can hop on a quick flight to Southwest. Tech Shop's going to be open in St. Louis in, I think, in August or September, or you can just go to Cambridge and take a look at that. All those kind of fabrication tools. And the other thing is, from a pharma side, if you want to develop new drugs, well, guess what? You need a wet lab. You know how hard it is to put your own wet lab together? $1 million worth of equipment? What if that's already available and you share it with 20 other companies? Cortex, there's a similar place in St. Louis and in Cambridge that does that. This is a molecular printer, a 3D molecular printer. Do you know what that is? Go look it up, because this is the future. It's not just big, gawky little things or models of, your favorite action figure. This gets down to tiny, tiny, tiny things that you can do all kinds of amazing things. Healthcare applications alone will be dramatic. You're seeing two different kinds of pathways when you come to some of the clinical things happening. You're seeing these complete artificial things. You can go look this up pretty easily. So artificial kidneys that are mechanical. Or look at that one. This is on a TED Talk. This is 3D printed from your own stem cells. Now, it's not so far away, but as I was talking earlier, to my colleague, what happens when you're 70 years old and you decide, hey, I want to get all my new organs out of my own cells so I don't get rejected, and I get a 30-year-old liver? Some people would be very happy about that, and they probably get way too much tequila right after it. But this is happening. Bionics, this is also real. You want to look up something interesting? There's a lady in England, or a couple people now, who have bionic eyes. It's not $6 million man stuff where you got a little crosshair thing, but it works. And seeing the fusion between neurology, biochemistry, and everything else, and some of the tech, you will see some amazing things between prosthetics of many times. Just to push it along a little bit, I don't know if you've seen this, but everybody knows from Star Trek. Everybody watch Star Trek? Come on, there's a few closet nerds here. Yeah, okay. I know. Tricorders. There's a Tricorder X Prize. Now, it's not going to be something where I can scan this gentleman and say, ooh, you're perfectly healthy. No. But it's going to be the first step, and you're going to have that kind of sensing capability. And sensors are a new wave. So sensing technology, so when you go back and you say, hey, I want to take all these bright engineers, because we got these great crop of people, and I don't want them to leave the community. Let's make sure we have the tech in that tech shop you're going to create, because you're going to create it, right? You're committing to that right now? Yeah. I'm a horrible person, I know. But sensors are going to be the next thing. Nanoparticles, people have talked about it. The presentation earlier about the magnetic use of the magnets to delivery, you're brilliant. Are you open for investment? I'm just talking personal investment. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, doing business on the side. Because if you don't think that's cool, you're not a doctor, and I'm not a doctor, but I pretend to be. This is something that Google is working on. Now, when you got a balance sheet where you got, I don't know, 120 billion just sitting there and you spend 16, you're going to develop stuff. They may throw away a bunch of stuff. Pay attention to this. It's going to be a while. They are working on this as well. This is in the public domain. And I can show you a bunch of other stuff. And this presentation you can send out, so you don't need to shoot it. But this is going to manage diabetes too. Can you see the future in some of those things? I haven't even gone through 1/10 of the innovations that I can tell you will be relevant for healthcare. These are just some of the little ones. Drones are a big deal. Go back to sensors, look at sensors for everything, especially, you know, this isn't a tiny community, but it's not a super large community. If you guys can coalesce the stuff you can come up, it's just a question of whether you dream it. The National Science Foundation has funding for things. There are a lot of people who have funding for things. And you don't have to spend a fortune to test a thing. But if you create, and if you've got a university that's got an innovation place, it's a safe place to teach young people not to get hooked into this mindset of I've got to go through this steady step of career and I can't try things, I can't test. Teach them to try and fail, and it's okay to fail 9 times out of 10, because that's where the innovation happens. Any questions? Yeah? You gotta tell me who you are, though.
Oh, okay. My name is Ann Dupuy, and I'm with Elevated Health Systems. And it's just a comment on your awesome presentation about looking for the future, looking for things that are value-based on things that people will pay for and such like that, looking ahead. Just wanted to make a comment that we have associates from BioKansas here today, which is an organization. The office is in the Overland Park area, but they serve the whole state of Kansas. So for my little company here in Wichita, it's a great thing to be a member. I go up once a month for meetings, and tomorrow night's meeting is going to be on the plaza at the law office of the other gentleman sitting next to him. And it's going to be a great reception. There'll be people from industries all over, including Cerner and Garmin and every other, and you just drink wine and just share. And I just take one night, spend the night there, and come back. And it's a fantastic thing. It's great that Dennis and Michael are here to reach out to us. So they really keep up with information on legislation, to let you know when it's time to really get involved and write your legislator, get those tax credits or whatever. But they just do a fantastic job. And it's fun to hang out with the patent attorneys. So it makes you think that you could do this.
No,
It makes you think that you could do this.
I'm just kidding. If you're a patent attorney, I like it.
They're so creative.
No, thank you for the comments. One thing I would just pile on, talk to your senators, talk to your governor, talk to your representatives. Be unified in voice. Go out and visit them, 5 or 10 of them, kick their door in and say, this is what we want you to help with. And if you don't, we're going to vote you out. That's terrible to threaten like that. You should do it. They should earn their pay. Yeah.
So I heard you mention that you invested in a particular company. Could you tell us a little bit more about the process you have for investing in other companies, and what if there are companies here that would be interested in piloting with you, what that process would be? I think it's a vital part to any ecosystem that they can pilot with the end user.
Sure. Okay. So that's actually kind of 2 questions. The first is we have a venture cap fund that's on its 3rd fund right now, and it's a separate entity, and they tend to invest in mid-stage companies, so people have revenue, they've got products and everything like that. Having said that, we've kind of shifted a little bit, so early-stage companies, they've got to go through some hurdles, and there's got to be a direct application in our organization, and you got to have some nut job like me who's going to back it and say, yes, we really want to do it. But there's even a fast-track process. I will tell you a couple things. Going through an ascension is both good and bad. It's worse than dealing with the federal government from a legal standpoint. Trust me on this. However, once you're in, you're kind of in. You have to have insurance, because you do everything on our paper, you sign your life away, and we will want some of the, we don't like developing something without having a piece of it. I mean, that's generally the deal you sign up for with any big system. There is somebody just like me in HCA, another guy named Chip Blofus. You should also know who he is. And when you go to them, you know, we see thousands of companies. I'm not kidding. The key thing is really think through, do you have a product? I mean, think of it like Shark Tank, much nicer people, but you really have to get your pitch in very quick, which is, look, this is what it does. This is the ROI. Talk ROI, and who's it for? There are a lot of great ideas. Why is yours exceptional? That's key. So you need to have something where you say, look, this is going to benefit the consumer. It's going to help you. You're going to do this. And here's the scale. You got to talk about the scale and the opportunity of it, and really have your business thought out. Be able to talk through your IP ownership of it, making sure that you really have it and that you've done your research and that nobody else has it. And these, you know, will give you an audience. I mean, if there's something real, I'll tell you my email. It's cyoung2, CYOUNG, the number 2 at Ascension, ASCENSION.org. Shoot me an email. Say, look, this is what we're thinking. I'll tell you straight up. I tell people all the time, no. I tell some people yes. And there are some smart little companies that have come up with something amazing, and it takes a little while. It's not going to be overnight, but we do pilot stuff. And we actually have a fast-track process to pilot things. Now, you may have to go purchase insurance to basically meet our criteria, and you may have to go through some hoops that you never ever thought you would, but sometimes getting in a large health system is a great place to do it.
When you say insurance, what kind of insurance?
Indemnity, liability. So if there's any kind of security breaches, things like that, I'll let lawyers do it. I'm the worst person to ask that. Only a lawyer would ask that. Go away. No, I'm kidding. I like you.
And then,
I'm an economist too. We would ask that too.
Oh, I'm an economist. Don't ever bring that up.
in the spirit of focusing on Wichita and making the ecosystem work here, is there a way to pilot things specifically with the Wichita hospitals, or to make this a test bed of sorts?
I'll tell you exactly, because we have Via Christi. Via Christi is an important health system for us. What is ideal is you want to get into Via Christi. You have a few of the physicians. Who are the physicians here who are with Via Christi? We have at least one.
And there were earlier.
Oh yeah, and the chief medical officer. So you go to him, because he's on the dark side. He's a physician who's an administrator. I'm just kidding. I'm giving you. I got a checkbook. Not a big one, but it's there. A couple dollars. Try to go to a business head and make sure that you bring the clinicians with you, because I'll give you a little secret. Clinicians, we don't own most of our physician practices. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But at the end of the day, they're our partners in our business of taking care of them. If a group of physicians come and say, hey, we want to test this, we want to figure out how to do it, we're going to listen to them because it makes sense to do it. Now, if there's no business case around it, I'm going, no, that's silly. However, if there is something, I can stand here right now and say if there are 3 or more physicians who come to him and say, hey, we've got something we want to test, and we've got the business people, okay, I'm on a plane the next day because it makes sense. But get through that. Don't just get them hyped up. Think through the business mechanics of it. Does it really make sense? And we'll figure it out. And sometimes, we have very locked down IT systems, so just be prepared for that. But if there are devices or there's anything, we're not just going to play around with the FDA or anything. It's got to go through all the IRBs. We are a heavily regulated industry, so if it's a process thing or it's a consumer thing, maybe it's an app. There are a lot of things. If they're bolt-ons to what's existing, there's a lot of opportunities to work. So,
I guess what I'm driving at is there autonomy for the management in the local hospitals to be partnering with the community, driving these pilots, making decisions not at a centralized level but at a Wichita level?
To a degree, but you got to keep in mind we're a very large health system, and when you enter into one element of our health system, you could impact all of it. Like our IT system, no, you don't have autonomy. You don't just get to say we're going to bolt this onto this. You got to let us know. We got to have our security professionals look at it. So, but we don't try to hinder them. We have this fast track process just to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay. Other question? Yeah.
So mine's a comment.
Yeah.
Is just for the audience. Chris mentioned Tech Shop. We have one. It's called Go Create. So I went around the United States and I visited with the CEO. I studied Tech Shop. I studied the other ones. We morphed it. We're going to have something special here in Wichita. Opens in October called Go Create that Coke helped us fund. And right outside the door of Go Create is a commercial Kinko's for 3D printing. You can bring any file to me, tell me what you want it printed out of, and you get the part back. I'll tell you how much it costs, and I'll tell you when you can come by and pick you up your part. So ours is a tech shop on steroids. So actually, what Chris said, we saw a year and a half ago, that if we're going to do this, we have to do this. And so ours is about 20,000 square feet, called Go Create, and it'll be open in October. So equipment's already ordered, it's already been. So I have not got Commerce to invest in it yet, which I like Chris's idea.
I can't believe you're not investing. Why aren't you investing? You're a bad commerce. No, I'm kidding. No, but I will say this. I don't know what your business model is. You have to make it so brainlessly simple that, one, you can train anybody to use a thing. And, I mean, you probably know this, but Tech Shop does this thing where on your badge, you have to actually have gone through training for the equipment to work. And you have access in a subscription model to make it work. So it just makes sense. And you can have a kid who's 12-year, well, not a 12-year-old can't do it, but an 18-year-old can, or a 70-year-old engineer is retired. And I got to tell you, the one thing I saw, and I just saw it in spades when I was just at Cortex in St. Louis, is this interesting thing that's happening of a bunch of retirees working with a bunch of millennials, because they don't want to work for a big company, they've got all their benefits, but they still want to work, and they got a lot of expertise. And figure out how to tap those two communities and have them work together. Any other questions before I'm going to stay because there's some cool presentations, but I'll stop talking.